My name is Ioannis Ioannou. I'm an associate professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the London Business School. And in my work, I try to understand to what extent modern business organizations contribute towards a sustainable future. So in that respect, I care about how do organizations integrate sustainability and corporate social responsibility in the way they do business, in their business model, in their everyday to-day operations, into their vision and into their purpose. In the domain of sustainability, company disclosures, whether mandatory or voluntary, are becoming increasingly important. So for us as academics, it's important to understand why is it that companies disclose and what is it that companies disclose. Moreover, we want to understand why is it that some companies may choose to disclose some things and some companies may disclose other things. In that sense, as an individual, right, in order to answer those kinds of questions, you would have to go in and read thousands, if not tens of thousands of reports, whether they're voluntary or mandatory, and try to extract some conclusions. Of course, that's impossible, right? We're talking about thousands, if not millions of pages, but this is precisely why databases like Datamaran are important, because they can do that for you. They can essentially read the reports, they can basically reveal the underlying important topics that show up in these reports and allow and quantify to a large extent quantify what's in those reports. So the databases like Datamaran allow us to do the kind of research that, quite honestly, human nature wouldn't allow you to do, because it's impossible to read them. And on top of that, these are vitally important issues, increasingly more important issues, and you can see this everywhere. Countries around the world discussing whether sustainability reporting should be mandated. Do we need standards? What is it that companies should disclose? How do we understand what issues are material versus less material across industries? What are the costs of reporting? Whether companies are converging in their disclosures? All of those issues that topics of public debate, topics of academic debate, and we're only now beginning to explore more vigorously and in a manner that is quantifiable. So the databases like Datamaran that did not exist before essentially allow us to answer all these kinds of very critical questions. A lot of companies around the world are increasingly experimenting with how to integrate environmental, social governance, in other words, ESG and sustainability issues into their strategy and into their business model. Of course, we know that what gets measured gets managed. So these kind of technologies will allow companies to measure and manage their impact not only on their shareholders, but in the diversity of stakeholders with which they interact, such as their employees, their local communities, the government, their supply chains, and so on. So these kinds of technologies enable companies to measure, to report internally, motivate potentially employees or their constituents, but also report publicly, therefore becoming more transparent and more accountable towards the broader society. I'll give you an example. Consider, for instance, the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Sustainable Development Goals are agreed by many countries around the world, and they're symbolic in the sense that they set the direction, they set the global direction of where we want to be. So companies are able to harness these technologies to measure their impacts and would be better able to align their strategy towards these Sustainable Development Goals, so our global objectives, so to speak. And finally, I think that these issues are becoming more and more core to strategy. They're not peripheral to strategy, they're not an add-on. I do think this is not going to be a nice technology to have, but at the very least, it's going to be a necessary technology to have, especially for those companies that are really serious and genuine in their commitment towards stakeholders and towards having a positive impact in society. In other words, sustainable companies.